Most traders think becoming profitable is a destination, a finish line they'll cross one day. But it's not. It's a threshold you've already crossed multiple times without realizing it. You've had profitable days, profitable weeks, maybe even profitable months, but you didn't trust them. You thought they were luck, anomalies. You waited for the crash, and your doubt created the crash. What if I told you that the only difference between a temporarily profitable trader and a consistently profitable trader isn't skill, it's belief? It's the willingness to accept that you've already arrived and stop sabotaging yourself back to the beginning. Today I'm showing you 5 signs that you've crossed the threshold, and the only thing keeping you from staying there is your disbelief. And I need you to sit with that for a second because it's probably making you uncomfortable right now. The idea that you might already be profitable, that the transformation has already happened, and you just haven't given yourself permission to believe it, because believing it feels dangerous, doesn't it? It feels like you're setting yourself up for disappointment, like you're getting ahead of yourself, like you're jinxing it. So you stay in doubt, you stay in the waiting room. You tell yourself you'll believe it when you have 3 consecutive profitable months, or when you hit a certain dollar amount, or when you stop making any mistakes at all. But those goalposts, those arbitrary markers you're waiting to hit, they keep moving, and they keep you stuck in perpetual self-doubt. You've been grinding. You know you have. You've put in the hours. You've studied the charts until your eyes burned. You've back-tested strategies. You've lost money and learned expensive lessons that you'll never forget. You've done the work. And somewhere along the way, something started to change inside you. Something subtle, something you almost didn't notice. But you don't trust it yet. You're afraid to believe that you might actually be getting it. Because every time you felt confident before, every time you thought you'd figured it out, the market humbled you. The market reminded you that you didn't know as much as you thought you knew. So now you're in this strange liminal space where you're trading better, but you can't let yourself feel it. You're waiting for permission to believe you've turned a corner. You're waiting for proof. You're waiting for someone to tell you it's real. Well, I'm going to tell you something. You can't tell if you're improving or just getting lucky. And that uncertainty is eating you alive. Your results are inconsistent enough that you question everything. One week you're up, you feel good. You think maybe this is it, maybe I'm getting consistent. The next week you're down, and suddenly you're back to questioning whether you learned anything at all. You're following your plan more often. You know you are. You can see it in your journal, but you still break it sometimes. And when you break it, even if it's just once, you use that as evidence that you haven't changed. You're taking better trades. You can feel it. Your entries are cleaner. Your risk management is tighter. But you still take bad trades occasionally. And those bad trades become proof that you're still the same trader you've always been. And because you don't have a clear reference point for what becoming profitable actually looks like, because nobody's ever given you a checklist of psychological markers, you keep moving the goalposts. You keep telling yourself, I'll believe it when this happens. I'll believe it when I do that. But those markers are arbitrary. They're made up. They're your fear disguised as reasonable standards, and they keep you stuck. They keep you in this purgatory where you're improving but you won't acknowledge the improvement, where you're transforming but you won't trust the transformation. Here's what I need you to understand. The signs of becoming profitable aren't found in your account balance. They're not found in your win rate or your profit factor or your Sharpe ratio. They're found in your nervous system, in what you feel, and more importantly, in what you stop feeling. Becoming profitable is a psychological transformation that shows up in your body before it shows up in your bank account. And if you're waiting for the money to prove the transformation, you've got it backwards. You've got the whole thing backwards. The transformation creates the money, not the other way around. You've been measuring your progress by outcomes, wins and losses, profit and loss statements, account growth. Did I make money today? Did I lose money today? Was this week green or red? But outcomes are lagging indicators. They tell you where you were, not where you are. They're rearview mirror data. The real indicators, the ones that actually matter, the ones that predict your future, they're leading indicators. They're behavioral. They're emotional. They're the things you do differently now that you didn't do 6 months ago. They're the things that stopped triggering you, the thoughts that don't occur to you anymore, the impulses you don't act on, the feelings that used to control you that now just pass through like weather. And once you know what to look for, once you can recognize these signs, you stop questioning yourself. You stop waiting for proof that never comes. You start trusting the process. You start believing in your own transformation. And that belief, that trust, that's what allows you to stay on the other side of the threshold instead of sabotaging yourself back to the beginning every time you have a bad week. By the end of our time together, you're going to have a psychological checklist that's more accurate than any profit and loss statement. You'll understand why your best trading days don't feel exciting anymore and why that's perfect. Why that's exactly what you want. You'll see that the doubt you're feeling isn't evidence that you're failing. It's evidence that you're shedding an old identity. And identities don't die quietly. They fight. They make you doubt. They make you question. And most importantly, you'll give yourself permission to believe that the shift is real, that you're not imagining it, that you're becoming the trader you needed to be all along. Let me tell you about a trader I worked with. We'll call her Sarah. Sarah came to me frustrated, genuinely frustrated. She said she'd had 3 profitable months in a row, but she didn't feel like a profitable trader. She felt like an imposter waiting to be exposed. Like someone had made a mistake and let her into a club she didn't belong in. And any moment now, someone was going to notice and kick her out. And I asked her, what changed in those 3 months? What are you doing differently? What's different about your process, your execution, your mindset? And she couldn't articulate it. She sat there for a minute trying to find words, and then she just said, I don't know. I guess I'm just following my plan more consistently. But she said it like it was nothing, like it was obvious, like it didn't matter. So I dug deeper. I said, okay, when you see a setup now, walk me through what goes through your mind. What's the internal process? And she said, well, I check if it meets my criteria. I look at the context. I check my risk. If everything lines up, I take it. If it doesn't line up, I don't take it. And I said, okay, but what do you feel? What's the emotional experience of that decision? And she looked confused. She said, I don't feel anything. It's just a setup. It either meets my rules or it doesn't. That's not really an emotional thing. And that's when I knew. That's when I understood. She'd crossed the threshold. She'd become the trader she'd been trying to become. But because the crossing was so undramatic, so boring, so completely unremarkable, she didn't recognize it as achievement. She didn't recognize it as transformation. See, Sarah expected becoming profitable to feel like winning, like celebration, like relief, like this huge weight lifting off her shoulders, like fireworks and champagne, and finally I made it. But it doesn't feel like any of those things. It feels like a Tuesday. It feels like doing laundry. It feels like brushing your teeth. It feels so ordinary, so mundane, that you don't even notice the magnitude of what's changed. And that's the paradox. The moment trading becomes boring is the moment you've mastered it. But boring feels wrong when you've been conditioned to expect excitement, when you've been taught that trading should be thrilling, that it should get your heart racing, that it should feel significant. And so when it stops feeling that way, when it starts feeling routine, you think something's wrong. You think you've lost your edge. You think you're not engaged enough. But you're wrong. That boredom, that ordinariness, that's the signal. That's the sign that you've internalized everything. That execution has become unconscious competence. What if the reason you don't feel successful is because success doesn't feel how you expected it to feel? What if you've been waiting for a feeling that was never going to come? What if the transformation you've been hoping for has already happened and you just didn't recognize it because it was too quiet? Let me give you another way to think about this. Imagine you're learning to play the piano. In the beginning, every note requires conscious thought. You're looking at the sheet music. You're finding middle C. You're figuring out which finger goes on which key. You're counting beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's exhausting. Your brain is working at maximum capacity just to play one simple melody, just to get through Twinkle Twinkle Little Star without making a mistake. And you have to think about every single movement, every single decision, but you practice every day, hours, weeks, months, and slowly, something shifts. You stop thinking about where your fingers go. They just go. Your hands know the keyboard. They've memorized the geography of it. You stop counting beats consciously. You just feel them. The rhythm is in your body now. It's not in your head. And one day you're playing a song and you realize you're not thinking about the song. You're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, or a conversation you had earlier, or nothing at all. Your hands are playing, your mind is elsewhere, and the music is better than it's ever been. It's more fluid, more natural, more alive, because you're not forcing it anymore. You're not controlling it. You're just allowing it to happen through you. That's what profitable trading feels like. It's the point where execution becomes unconscious competence, where you're following your process without having to remind yourself to follow it, where your hands move to close a losing trade and you don't have to fight yourself. You don't have to have an internal argument about it. You don't have to convince yourself. The stop is hit. You close it. Done. Where you calculate your position size and it's just right because you're not thinking about it anymore. You've internalized the math. Your brain does it automatically. Where you see a setup and you know within seconds whether you're taking it or not because all the filtration happens below conscious awareness. And when you reach that place, it doesn't feel like mastery. It feels like you're not doing anything. It feels like the trading is just happening through you, like you're not the one trading, like you're just observing someone else trade using your hands. And that feeling of not doing anything, that feeling of it being easy and automatic, that makes you doubt yourself. Because you've been taught that mastery should feel hard, that if it's not difficult, if it's not requiring effort, then you must not be doing it right. Have you mistaken ease for lack of effort? Have you dismissed your own growth because it stopped feeling hard? Because I see this all the time. Traders who've made enormous progress, but they can't see it because the progress doesn't feel how they thought it would feel. So let me give you the 5 signs, the 5 markers. The 5 ways you can recognize that you've crossed the threshold and the only thing left to do is believe it. Sign number 1. You've stopped arguing with price. This is the first sign and it's foundational. Everything else builds on this. You used to take a loss and immediately start explaining to yourself why the market was wrong, why your analysis was correct, why this shouldn't have happened. You'd pull up the chart after you got stopped out and you'd find reasons. You'd find justifications. Look, there was support here. Look, the trend was clearly up. Look, all these indicators were aligned. The market just didn't cooperate. The market was irrational. The market made a mistake. And you'd justify, defend, rationalize. You'd build a case for why you were actually right and the market just hadn't figured it out yet. But now? Now you take a loss and your first thought isn't, why was I right and the market wrong? Your first thought is, okay, what did I miss? What was the market telling me that I didn't see? What signal was there that I ignored or didn't pick up on? You're no longer trying to prove you were right. You're trying to learn what you didn't know. And that shift, that fundamental shift in orientation, it changes everything. Because the market doesn't care about your opinion. The market doesn't care how good your analysis was. The market doesn't care about your reasoning or your logic or your technical indicators. The market only rewards your ability to respond to what's actually happening instead of what you think should happen. The paradox here is beautiful. The moment you stop needing to be right is the moment you start being profitable. Because profit doesn't come from being right. Profit comes from being responsive, from being adaptive, from being willing to change your mind when the information changes. And you can't do that if you're defending your original thesis. You can't do that if you're arguing with price. The emotional signature of this sign is that you feel curiosity instead of defensiveness. When you look at a losing trade now, there's no emotional charge to it. You're not angry at yourself. You're not frustrated with the market. You're not making it mean something about your intelligence or your ability or your worth as a trader. You're just investigating. like a scientist looking at an unexpected result in an experiment. Not with judgment, not with disappointment, just with interest. Huh, that's not what I expected. I wonder what I missed. I wonder what the data is telling me. I remember working with a trader who would take a loss and spend an hour writing in his journal about why the market was wrong. He'd pull up multiple time frames. He'd check correlations. He'd find other traders who took the same trade and lost. He was building a case, building evidence that he wasn't alone in being wrong, that the market was the problem. And I asked him, "What are you getting out of this exercise? What are you learning?" And he said, "I'm learning that my analysis was correct." And I said, "Okay, but did your analysis make you money?" And he got quiet, because the answer was no. His analysis, no matter how correct it was academically, didn't produce profit, and that's all that matters. But even if you've stopped arguing with price, even if you've made that fundamental shift in orientation, there's a subtler sign that most traders miss. Sign number 2. You're more afraid of breaking your rules than losing money. This one reveals everything about where you are psychologically. This one shows you whether you're thinking short-term or long-term, whether you're optimizing for today or for 10 years from now. Early in your trading journey, your biggest fear was losing money. Every trade felt like risk. Every red candle felt like threat. Every time you were down on a position, your nervous system would activate. Your heart would race. Your breathing would get shallow. You'd feel that pit in your stomach, because losing money felt like danger. It felt like survival threat. And your brain, your primitive brain, it can't distinguish between losing money on a trade and being chased by a predator. It activates the same systems, the same fear response. But somewhere along the way, that fear shifted. It changed, and you might not have even noticed it happening. But now your biggest fear isn't losing money on a trade that followed your plan. Your biggest fear is making money on a trade that violated your process. Because you understand something that most traders never learn. Random wins are more dangerous than systematic losses. Let me say that again because it's counterintuitive and your brain might resist it. Random wins are more dangerous than systematic losses. When you make money breaking your rules, you're reinforcing the wrong behavior. You're teaching your brain that the rules don't matter, that you can feel your way through this, that maybe your plan isn't as important as your instinct in the moment. And that's a trap. That's a death trap. Because the next time you break the rules, and there will be a next time because you've now learned that breaking the rules can work, the next time you break the rules, you'll lose. And then you won't know what to trust. You won't know if your plan works. You won't know if your instincts work. You won't know anything. You'll be back in chaos. But when you lose money following your rules, you're reinforcing the right behavior. You're teaching your brain that the process matters more than the outcome. That you're building something durable, something that will work over time, not something that works right now in this moment, but something that works over 100 trades, over 1,000 trades. You're thinking probabilistically. You're thinking statistically. You're thinking like a casino. And casinos don't care if they lose on the next hand. They care that over 10,000 hands, the math works in their favor. The distinction is this. Losing traders fear the wrong thing. They fear loss. They fear red. They fear being wrong. Profitable traders fear the right thing. They fear chaos. They fear randomness. They fear losing their edge by abandoning their process. And once you make that shift, once your biggest fear becomes breaking your process rather than losing money, everything changes. Everything becomes clearer. Because now you have a simple filter. Did I follow my rules? Yes or no? That's the only question that matters. Not did I make money? Did I follow my rules? The emotional signature of this sign is that you feel worse after a winning trade that broke your rules than after a losing trade that followed them. And this seems backwards to everyone around you. If you try to explain this to a non-trader, they'll think you're crazy. They'll say, "But you made money. Why are you upset?" And you can't explain it in a way they'll understand. But you know it's right. You know it in your bones. Because you're playing a different game now. You're not playing for today. You're playing for 10 years from now. And the only way to win the 10-year game is to honor your process even when it costs you in the short term. I knew a trader who took a trade that broke 3 of his rules. He was feeling FOMO. He was watching the market run without him. And he jumped in. No analysis, no plan, just emotion. And he made $800. And he felt sick, physically sick. Not happy, not relieved. Sick. Because he knew what he'd just done. He taught his brain that rules are optional. That emotion can override discipline. And the next week, he broke his rules again. Same feeling, same FOMO. But this time he lost $2,000. And he didn't even have his process to fall back on because he'd abandoned it. And once you've internalized that process trumps outcome, you'll notice a strange thing starting to happen with your attention. Sign number 3. You've become selectively blind. This is fascinating when you first notice it. You used to see every setup, every pattern, every opportunity. Your eyes would scan the charts and light up at dozens of potential trades. Here's a double bottom, here's a breakout, here's a moving average cross, here's a divergence, here's a gap fill opportunity, and you'd feel this compulsion to act, to participate, to get involved, to not miss out, to be a trader, because sitting on your hands felt like not trading. And if you're not trading, what's the point? But now something's changed. You look at the same charts and you only see a handful of setups. Maybe just 1 or 2, maybe none. Not because you've forgotten how to analyze, not because you've gotten worse at pattern recognition, but because your brain has learned to filter. It's automatically screening out the noise, the marginal setups, the ones that technically qualify but don't have that quality you can't quite name, that quality of all factors aligning, that quality of this is my pitch. The paradox here is profound. The better you get at trading, the less you trade. The more you know, the more selective you become. And to everyone else, it looks like you're being lazy, or scared, or missing opportunities. Your trading friends are taking 20 trades a day and you're taking 2 trades a week, and they're asking you, why aren't you trading? Don't you see all these setups? And you do see them, but you also see that they're not your setups. They don't meet your criteria. They don't have your edge. And so you wait. The mechanism behind this is your subconscious. Your subconscious has built a database of thousands of trades. It's pattern matched what works and what doesn't in ways your conscious mind can't articulate. Your conscious mind might look at a setup and say, this meets all my rules. This is technically valid. I should take this. But your subconscious is saying, I've seen this 100 times, and 80 of those times it didn't work. And you feel that as hesitation, as doubt, as something's not quite right. And now, instead of overriding that feeling, you listen to it, you honor it, you trust it. And the result is, you're trading less, making more, and feeling calmer, because you're not fighting FOMO anymore. You're not worried about missing moves. You trust that your edge will appear again. You trust that there's always another opportunity. You're not desperate. You're not hungry. You're just patient. You're waiting for situations where all factors align, where your edge is sharpest, where the risk-reward is so obvious that taking the trade feels boring. The emotional signature of this sign is that you feel boredom during market hours. Long stretches where nothing is happening, where you're just watching, waiting, and instead of that boredom triggering anxiety, instead of your brain saying, I should be doing something, I'm wasting time, I'm not a real trader if I'm not trading, it just feels like waiting. Like standing at a bus stop. The bus will come. You don't need to do anything to make it come faster. You don't need to walk down the street to find another bus. You just wait. And when the bus comes, you get on. And when it doesn't, you keep waiting. I remember watching a professional trader I was studying under. He sat in front of his screens for 4 hours and took one trade. One. And I asked him, didn't you see all these other opportunities? And he said, I saw setups, but they weren't opportunities. An opportunity is something that fits my edge. Most of what I see doesn't fit. So I wait. And when something fits, I take it. And I don't second guess that approach because I know over time it works. But selective attention is only half the picture. there's something even more profound happening with time. Sign number 4. Your time horizon has expanded. When you started trading, everything was immediate. You'd take a trade and 5 minutes later you'd be checking it. Did it move? Is it going my way? Should I adjust something? You'd measure your day by whether you were up or down. Did I make money today? Did I lose money today? How much? You'd measure your week by whether you hit your target, your month by whether you grew your account. Everything was short-term, urgent, right now. But now you think in quarters, in years. You have trades open that you haven't looked at in days. You know you're in them. You know your stops are in place. You know your plan. But you don't need to watch every tick. You don't need to monitor it constantly. You have a bad week and you don't panic because you're measuring yourself over a longer span. You zoom out. You look at your last 3 months, your last 6 months, and you see the trajectory. And the trajectory matters more than any individual week. You've stopped playing the daily game and started playing the statistical game. You've moved from outcome thinking to expectancy thinking. You don't care if this trade wins. Not really. Of course you'd prefer it to win, but whether it wins or loses doesn't determine how you feel about yourself or your ability. What you care about is whether over 100 trades, your edge produces positive expectancy. Whether the math works. Whether your system generates more winning dollars than losing dollars over time. You don't care if this week was profitable. You care if your consistency over the quarter shows improvement. Are you following your plan more often? Are you making fewer emotional trades? Are you managing risk better? Those are the metrics you're tracking. Not profit and loss, process metrics. And when you shift your focus to process metrics on a longer time frame, individual results lose their power over you. They're just data points, just samples in a larger distribution. The paradox here is that the longer your time horizon, the less anxiety you feel. Because anxiety lives in the short term. It lives in the next tick, the next trade, the next day. What's going to happen right now? But when you zoom out, when you're measuring yourself over months and years, individual results don't carry emotional weight. They're just numbers, just outcomes that are part of a larger pattern. The emotional signature of this sign is that you stop checking your profit and loss during the trading day. You used to check it constantly, every few minutes, every time you'd close a trade. How much am I up? How much am I down? Where am I for the day? And that constant checking was creating anxiety. It was making every tick matter. But now you check it once, at the end of the day, or once a week, or once a month. Because you're not optimizing for today, you're optimizing for the long term. You close positions and you don't look at what they did after you exited. You used to do that. You used to close a trade and then watch it for the next hour to see if you exited too early or too late. And that was torture. Because if it kept going without you, you'd feel regret. And if it reversed, you'd feel validated, but also realize you were just lucky. Either way, it didn't help. It just created emotion. But now you close it and you move on. It's done. That chapter is finished. You're focused on the next opportunity. You have losing weeks where you don't feel the need to understand why or fix anything. Because you're operating from a place of statistical trust. You trust the math. You trust the process. You trust that variance exists, that losing weeks are part of the distribution, that you can do everything right and still lose because that's how probability works, and you're okay with that. You don't need to adjust your system every time you have a bad week. You just keep executing. And once your time horizon expands, once you're thinking in quarters and years instead of days and weeks, the final sign emerges. The one that most clearly separates amateurs from professionals. Sign number 5. You've stopped explaining your trades. This is subtle but profound. You used to need to justify every trade to yourself, to others, to anyone who would listen. You'd write long journal entries explaining why you took it. 3 paragraphs about your analysis, your reasoning, your thesis. You'd tell your trading friends about the setup. You'd explain why this was a good opportunity. You'd need external validation that your reasoning was sound. You'd post in forums, in chat rooms, looking for confirmation, looking for someone to agree with you. But now you just trade. You see a setup that meets your criteria. You take it. And if someone asks why, your answer is simple. It met my criteria. That's it. No elaborate explanation, no defending your thesis. No need to convince anyone, including yourself. No 3-paragraph essay about support and resistance and volume and momentum. Just, it met my criteria, so I took it. The transformation here is that you've moved from external validation to internal trust. You don't need anyone to agree with your trade. You don't need the market to immediately prove you right. You don't need to convince yourself with a story. You've done the work. You've built your edge. You've tested it. You've executed it enough times to trust it. And now you just trust it. Quietly, without fanfare, without needing to announce it, without needing to explain it. The paradox is that the more confident you become, the less you say. Beginners talk constantly about their trades. They need to explain. They need to justify. They need to process out loud. Professionals are nearly silent. They take their trades, they manage them, they move on. Because confidence doesn't need to explain itself. It just executes. The emotional signature of this sign is that someone asks you about a trade and you realize you don't remember your reasoning. Not because you didn't have reasoning, you had criteria, you had a checklist. But the reasoning was so automatic, so ingrained, so unconscious that you didn't need to consciously articulate it. Your process evaluated the trade, it gave you a green light, and you executed. And that unconscious competence, that flow state where you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're just doing it, that's where mastery lives. I watched a professional trader get asked why he took a trade and he genuinely couldn't answer beyond it met my rules. The person asking kept pushing. But what did you see? What was special about it? And he just shrugged. I don't know. It was just there. It fit. And that answer frustrated the person asking because they wanted a story. They wanted analysis. But there was no story. There was just pattern recognition happening at a level below conscious articulation. So you've seen the signs. You've heard the 5 markers. Now what do you do with this information? How do you actually use this to recognize your own growth? Because that's the point. Not to understand it intellectually, but to apply it to your own trading so you can finally give yourself permission to believe you're becoming profitable. Here's what I want you to do. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. I want you to create a psychological journal separate from your trading journal. You probably already have a trading journal where you track your trades, your entries, your exits, your reasoning, your results. That's good. Keep doing that. But this is different. This is a journal where you track behaviors, not outcomes. Where you track internal states, not external results. Every Sunday, sit down with this journal and ask yourself 5 questions. Write the answers down. Be completely honest. No one's going to see this but you, so there's no reason to lie. Question 1. Did I argue with price this week? Did I try to explain why the market was wrong? Did I defend my analysis after a loss? Did I feel the need to justify why I was right even though I lost money? Be honest. If you did, write it down. If you didn't, write that down too. Question 2. Did I break any of my rules this week? And if yes, did I feel relief or discomfort? This is important. If you broke your rules and made money and felt good about it, that's a red flag. That means you haven't internalized sign number 2 yet. But if you broke your rules, even if you made money, and you felt uncomfortable about it, if you felt like you'd done something wrong, that's progress. That's your nervous system rewiring itself to value process over outcome. Question 3. How many setups did I skip because they didn't feel clean? Not setups that didn't meet your criteria. Setups that met your criteria technically, but something felt off. Something wasn't quite right. How many of those did you skip? And here's the key question. Did you feel regret about skipping them, or did you feel relieved? If you felt relieved, if you felt like you dodged a bullet, that's sign number 3 emerging. That's your selective blindness developing. Question 4. What's the longest you went without checking your profit and loss? Was it an hour? A day? A week? Track this. Because the longer you can go without checking, the longer your time horizon is becoming, the less you're optimizing for right now, and the more you're optimizing for the long term. Question 5. Did I feel the need to explain or justify any of my trades to anyone, including myself? Did you write long journal entries defending your reasoning? Did you tell other traders about your setups, looking for validation? Or did you just take your trades quietly and move on? Track this pattern. Because the quieter you become about your trades, the more confidence you have in your process. Your answers to these 5 questions tell you more about your progress than your profit and loss does. I'm serious. If you didn't argue with price, if breaking rules made you uncomfortable, if you skipped marginal setups without regret, if you went hours or days without checking your account, if you didn't feel compelled to explain your trades, you're growing. Even if this week was red, even if you lost money, even if your account is smaller than it was last month, the behaviors are the leading indicator. The money will follow. The money always follows the right behaviors. Always. It's just a matter of time. Here's another practice. Before you trade, during, and after, notice what you feel. Not what you think. What you feel in your body. Close your eyes if you need to. Scan your body from head to toe. Is there tension? Where is it? In your jaw? Your shoulders? Your stomach? Is there excitement? Where do you feel it? In your chest? Your hands? Is there dread? Where does that live? In your gut? Your throat? Is there calm? What does calm feel like in your body? And start tracking which emotional states correlate with your best execution. Keep a log. I'm willing to bet, and I'd bet a lot of money on this, your best trades come from a place of calm, maybe even boredom, maybe even slight annoyance at how obvious the setup is. And your worst trades come from excitement or urgency, from I need to take this right now or I'll miss it. From this is going to be huge. From I can feel it. Those emotional states, that arousal, that activation, it clouds your judgment. It makes you deviate from your plan. Once you see that pattern clearly, once you have data showing that calm produces good trades and excitement produces bad trades, you have a new filter. You can use your emotional state as a signal for whether you should be trading at all. If you're feeling urgent, you don't trade. You wait until the urgency passes. If you're feeling excited, you don't trade. You wait until the excitement fades. You only trade from calm, from neutral. From that place where you could take the trade or not take it, and you'd feel the same either way. Here's one more practice. Once a month, complete this sentence 10 different ways. I am a trader who, and then finish the sentence. Write 10 endings. Don't overthink it. Just write what comes to mind. What you write reveals your identity. And identity determines behavior. If you write things like, I am a trader who follows their plan, I am a trader who accepts losses as data, I am a trader who waits for their edge, you're in the right identity. You're becoming the trader you need to be. But if you write things like, I am a trader who needs to make back what they lost, I am a trader who's trying to prove themselves, I am a trader who's still figuring this out, you're still in the old identity. And that old identity is going to keep producing the old behaviors. So this simple exercise shows you where your self-concept is. And once you see it, you can start shifting it. You can start rewriting those sentences, practicing them. I am a trader who trusts their process. Say it out loud. I am a trader who thinks in probabilities. Say it until it feels true. And here's the last practice. Starting now, the only results you celebrate are process results. Not, I made money today, but I took only planned trades today. Not, I hit my target, but I managed that losing trade without moving my stop. Not, my account grew this month, but I followed my plan 90% of the time this month. This sounds trivial, It sounds like semantics. It's not. You're rewiring your brain to value the right things, to find satisfaction in discipline instead of dollars. And that rewiring is what sustains you through drawdowns, through plateaus, through the inevitable variance that breaks traders who only celebrate wins. Let me pull this all together for you because I want to make sure you understand what's available here. You came into this video wondering if you were improving, wondering if the changes you're noticing are real or if you're imagining them, wondering if you're finally becoming the trader you've been trying to be or if you're just in another lucky streak that's about to end. And what I've shown you is this. The signs are real. The changes are real. But they're not where you've been looking. You've been measuring your progress in dollars, in wins and losses, in whether your account is bigger this month than last month. But becoming profitable isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in what you've stopped feeling, the anxiety before you enter a trade, the need to check your position every 5 minutes, the defensiveness when you're wrong, the urgency to make back what you lost, the compulsion to trade when there's nothing to trade, the need to explain yourself, the need to be right. All of that noise, all of that emotional static, it's getting quieter. Maybe it's already gone and you just haven't noticed. And in its place is something you didn't expect. Not confidence, not excitement, not relief. Just calm. Just clarity. Just this quiet knowing that you're executing your process and trusting that the math will work over time. And that calm feels wrong at first. It feels like something's missing. Because you think trading should feel significant, should feel important, should feel like you're doing something. But the truth is, once you've internalized your process, once it's become unconscious competence, trading feels like breathing. You don't think about breathing. You don't celebrate breathing. You just breathe. And that's what execution becomes. Effortless, automatic, boring. The 5 signs. You've stopped arguing with price. You're more afraid of breaking your process than losing money. You've become selectively blind to marginal setups. Your time horizon has expanded beyond daily results, and you've stopped feeling the need to explain or justify your trades. If you're experiencing even 3 of these, you're not imagining it. You're transforming. And the fact that the transformation feels undramatic is proof it's real. Real growth is quiet. It's the flashy breakthrough promises that are fake. And I know what you're thinking right now. You're thinking, okay, maybe I am changing. Maybe these signs are showing up in my trading. But what if I backslide? What if I have a bad month and lose all this progress? What if this is just a phase? What if I'm fooling myself? And here's what I need you to understand. You will backslide. It's not a question of if. It's a question of when. You'll have bad days where you break your rules, where you argue with price, where you take trades out of emotion. You'll have bad weeks where you question everything, where you wonder if you've learned anything at all. You'll have bad months where your old patterns come back and you feel like you're starting over. But that doesn't erase the progress. It doesn't reset you to 0, because you'll notice the backslide. You'll catch yourself. And that noticing, that awareness, that's the real skill. That's the permanent shift. You're not trying to never make mistakes. You're trying to notice mistakes faster, to catch yourself sooner, to course correct before the damage becomes severe. And every time you do that, every time you notice and correct, you're strengthening the new neural pathways. You're making the new identity more dominant. Here's what I want you to remember. Say this out loud if you're alone. If you're in a place where you can speak, say these words. I don't need to prove I'm profitable. I don't need permission to believe I'm changing. I don't need a certain dollar amount to validate my progress. My growth is in my behavior. My transformation is in my nervous system. My edge is in what I've stopped doing. And the signs are already here. I just needed to know what to look for. You have permission to believe you're becoming profitable even if your account doesn't reflect it yet. You have permission to trust that the behavioral changes are more significant than any single month's results. You have permission to stop waiting for some external validation and start recognizing the internal transformation that's already happening. Because it is happening. Right now. In you. The threshold has been crossed. Multiple times. You just haven't trusted it. You've sabotaged yourself back every time you got close because you didn't believe you deserved to stay there. But you do deserve to stay there. You've done the work, you've put in the hours, you've paid the tuition, you've learned the lessons, and now the only thing standing between you and consistent profitability is your willingness to believe it's real, your willingness to stop testing it, your willingness to stop sabotaging it, your willingness to just accept that you've arrived and start acting like someone who's arrived. If this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in these signs, if you felt that quiet validation that yes, I am changing, this is real, I'm not imagining it, do me a favor. Hit the like button right now. Not for the algorithm, not for me, for yourself. As a small acknowledgement that you're on the path, that you're doing the work, that you're becoming who you needed to become. That small action, that tiny gesture, it matters. It's you telling yourself, I believe this. I see myself in this. I'm willing to trust my own transformation. And drop a comment telling me which sign resonated most. Which one made you realize, that's me. That's what's been happening. I just didn't have words for it. Was it stopping arguing with price? Was it fearing rule breaking more than loss? Was it becoming selectively blind? Was it expanding your time horizon? Was it stopping the need to explain? Tell me. Because your awareness of these patterns accelerates your growth. When you name something, when you identify it, you give yourself power over it. You can track it. You can nurture it. You can celebrate it. And if you want more content that helps you track the psychological side of trading, that shows you what to look for beyond the charts, beyond the indicators, beyond the strategies, subscribe. Because most trading content focuses on the technical side, on setups, on patterns, on when to buy and when to sell. And that's important. I'm not dismissing it. But it's not what separates consistently profitable traders from everyone else. What separates them is psychological awareness, self-knowledge, the ability to see their own patterns and interrupt the ones that don't serve them. You're not waiting to become profitable. You're in the process of becoming profitable right now. The signs are already appearing. You just needed someone to point them out, to give you permission to see them, to validate that what you're experiencing is real and not just your imagination. It's real. It's happening. And it's okay that it doesn't feel how you expected it to feel. That's actually how you know it's real. The fake transformations feel dramatic, feel exciting, feel like a breakthrough. The real ones feel like Tuesday, feel ordinary, feel like nothing special is happening. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not imagining your progress. You're changing, slowly, quietly, undramatically. And the change is real, and it's durable. And it's going to compound over time if you just trust it. If you just stop testing it. If you just let yourself believe that you've crossed the threshold and the only thing to do now is stay there. Now, go notice what you've stopped feeling. Go track what you've stopped doing. Go recognize the signs that you're already becoming the trader you've been trying to be. Because they're there. Quiet. Subtle. Waiting for you to see them. Waiting for you to trust them. Waiting for you to finally believe that you've arrived.